There was a young woman named Valentina who lived in a big city, surrounded by everything money could buy. A high-rise apartment, the latest car, clothes that never left the closet. Her family was rich in that way that makes people bow their heads when you walk by. But Valentina carried a weight that no one saw. She was unhappy, not in a dramatic way, not with tears in front of everyone. It was a quiet sadness that stayed there, sitting on her chest every night. After the house emptied and the smile no longer needed to be maintained, she would look out at the horizon through the window of her apartment and feel that life was passing by on the other side of the glass, and she couldn't open the window. Her father, Mr. Ronaldo, was a businessman who loved his daughter in the only way he knew how. With gifts, with bills paid, with ready-made plans. One morning, he placed his pen on the table and said, "Valentina, it's time to take over the company. You've graduated. What are you waiting for?" And Valentina, who'd rehearsed that moment for months, looked her father in the eyes and said, "Dad, I want to be a teacher." The silence that fell in that room weighed more than all the furniture in her house combined. Her mother, Mrs. Perpetua, swallowed hard. Her father stared at his daughter as if she had spoken in another language. "Teacher," he repeated slowly, tasting the word in his mouth, like someone biting into something whose flavor they didn't know. "Teacher," she confirmed, without looking away. What no one knew was that Valentina had completed her degree in pedagogy. In secret, studying at dawn, paying with her own money. It had been during a volunteer project at a public school that she discovered, for the first time in her life, what it felt like to have a full heart. The exact moment when a child understands something they didn't understand before. That light that turns on in their eyes. It was like watching the sun rise inside a person. And once you see that, there's no way to pretend that anything else is enough. She placed her diploma on her father's table. He looked at it for a long time. Then he said, "You're crazy." "Maybe," she replied, "but it's my kind of crazy, and I'm going to live it." She was approved in a government selection process and assigned to teach in a small town called Biladopin or Sosmo. It didn't appear on many GPS maps where. The earth was the color of rust, the sky was enormous, and the wind smelled of wet brush. On the eve of her trip, while packing her bags, her mother entered the room without knocking. She stood at the door for a moment, watching her daughter fold clothes in silence. Then she walked over to her, said nothing, and hugged her. A real hug, the kind that squeezes tight and doesn't want to let go. The kind that says everything the mouth doesn't know how to speak. "Go with God, my daughter," she whispered, "and don't let these people break you." Valentina left at dawn on a bus that smelled of old leather and diesel. As the big city disappeared in the rearview mirror, she rested her forehead against the cold glass and closed her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't running away from anything. She was heading towards something. Vela Dupin Ho appeared on the horizon like a drawing made by a child's hand. Low houses painted in cheerful colors, a square with a fountain that hadn't worked for years, a little church with a slightly crooked bell, and a school with a red roof that seemed built with a lot of love and little cement. When the bus stopped and the door opened, Valentina stepped down with her suitcase in hand and wide eyes. A short elderly woman with hair white as cotton came running toward her with open arms. "The new teacher has arrived. Everyone," she shouted, as if it were television news. Windows opened. Children appeared out of nowhere. A yellow dog sniffed the suitcase with professional curiosity. The woman was Donna Eunice, the school principal, a woman who ruled that small world with the firmness of a general and the heart of a grandmother. She took Valentina's hands in both of hers and squeezed them tightly. "Welcome to the end of the world, teacher. Around here, we call it home." Valentina looked around. She saw the children with curious eyes. She saw the immense blue sky with not a single building to hide it, and she felt, not thought, but felt that she was in the right place. Her class had 22 students between 8 and 12 years old. There was Binho, chubby and funny, who made the whole room laugh even before opening his mouth. Rosina, with braids and big eyes, who knew the names of all the stars by heart. Tio, who almost never spoke but drew things that left Valentina breathless. And Mariazinha, the smallest of all, who arrived every day with an impeccable uniform and a smile that seemed to challenge the whole world. On her first day of class, Valentina walked into the room and found 22 pairs of eyes, analyzing her as if she were an exotic creature brought from far away. It was Bin Ho who broke the ice, as always. My mom said big city teachers are stuck up. The room laughed nervously. Valentina laughed too, genuinely, from the heart. Your mom is right to be careful, she said. But I'm not stuck up. I'm just someone who left everything behind to learn from you. Rosina raised her hand. But didn't you come here to teach? Whoever teaches always learns more. Valentina replied. That's how it works. Binho frowned, thoughtful, like a philosopher who had just heard something he needed to process. Teacher, you're weird. Thank you, she said, tilting her head as if it were the greatest compliment in the world. And so, in that simple classroom with the red roof, at the end of a dusty road the GPS didn't know, Valentina's life truly began. One day, while Valentina was erasing the blackboard after class, she heard a noise outside. The children were shouting not in a fight, but in admiration. She went to the window and saw, in the little square in front of the school, a green military jeep covered in road dust had stopped, and getting out of it, with a backpack on his back and a uniform the color of earth, was a man. Tall, shoulders that had carried weight his whole life, a face sculpted by fatigue and determination, serious eyebrows, firm jaw, and eyes the color of cedar that scanned the surroundings with the calm caution of someone taught never to let their guard down. It was Sergeant Davi, assigned by the government to guard Vila do Pinhoa, forgotten mission, the kind superiors gave to soldiers without political sponsors. Davi was the son of a rural worker and a washerwoman. He had joined the army at 17 with a simple dream, to give his family a better life. He rose through the ranks through pure effort, with no favors from anyone, and he had learned, in the most painful way possible, that the heart is too risky to leave unguarded. 2 years earlier, after 3 years of dating, he had proposed to the woman he loved. He had saved the money, chosen the ring, prepared the moment, and she had said no, not with cruelty, but with that calm coldness that sometimes hurts more than any anger. You're too good, Davi, but I need someone who stays, and you're always leaving. Since that day, he had learned to be enough for himself. He carried out the mission, did the rounds, returned to silence, and guarded his heart as if it were too fragile an object to show. Binho, of course, was the first to confront the soldier. Sergeant, have you ever killed anyone? Davi stopped in the middle of the path. He looked at the boy with an expression that could have been anger but wasn't. No, he said, and I hope I never have to. Then why do you carry a gun? For the same reason you carry an umbrella. You carry it, hoping you won't need to use it. Binho looked at his friend beside him, impressed. This guy is philosophical, he murmured in a voice. Only the two of them heard. It was at that exact moment that Valentina appeared at the school door, calling the students back inside. She and Davi looked at each other for just 1 second, quick second. Almost nothing before, she looked away and went back inside. But that second was enough for both of them to know that this encounter wouldn't end there. The days passed over Vila do Pinho with that calm that only exists in small places. And Valentina was embraced by the village the way small towns. Embraced slowly at first, then all at once. Without warning. She learned the name of every resident. She learned to identify the smell of rain before it arrived. She created a project with the children called Voices of Pinho. Each student wrote about someone they loved, about a place they carried in their heart, about a dream they held. Valentina gathered everything into a handmade notebook and read it aloud to the class. When it came to Tio's story he had written about his father, a man who returned from the fields every day with bleeding hands. But an intact smile, the room fell into deep silence. And then T, who almost never spoke, said Ticha. Is that how we save people? By telling their stories? Valentina felt her throat tighten. Exactly. The encounters between Valentino and Davi became part of the village routine. Like the afternoon wind and the crooked bell of the little church, she corrected notebooks on the bench in the square. He would appear and ask permission to sit. They stayed in silence, but it was a silence that didn't weigh, that asked for nothing, that simply existed like a resting place for both of them. One afternoon, Davi asked, looking straight ahead, "Do you like it here?" "More than I imagined I would," she replied. "Why?" She thought for a moment. "Because here, things are real. The joy is real. People don't pretend to be what they're not." He stayed quiet. Then he said, carefully, "In the army you learn early to distinguish who is real and who is just performing." "And me?" she asked, not knowing why. She asked. He turned his face and looked at her. Through his cedar-colored eyes passed something different, not the soldier's caution, the honest curiosity of a man. "You seem real," he said. Valentina lowered her eyes to the notebooks, but the smile that bloomed at the corner of her mouth, she couldn't hide it. The children, naturally, noticed everything before any adult. "The sergeant likes the teacher," Pino announced in the middle of class, as if it were urgent news. "Pino," said Valentina, red as a ripe pepper. "Teacher, you deny it, but your eyes give it away," he said, with the wisdom of a 10-year-old who already knows everything. The whole room laughed, and Valentina, despite herself, laughed along. The year reached its heaviest moment one July morning when Valentina's phone rang with her father's name on the screen. "Valentina, your mother is in the hospital." The world stopped. Mrs. Perpetua had suffered a heart problem. She was stable, the doctors assured them, but needed surgery. And her father, who had always known how to solve everything with authority and money, spoke with the voice of a boy who didn't know what to do. "You need to come back." Daughter Valentina went to school anyway. With red eyes, she gave the day's lesson. But Rosenia, with those eyes that missed nothing, noticed immediately. "Teacher is sad. Teacher misses her family," she replied, with honesty. "So you're going to leave?" That small question pierced Valentina like a winter wind. She looked around the room at the drawings pinned to the wall, one made by each student on the first day, with the phrase she had asked. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Tio said. "I want to be someone who doesn't disappear." Valentina had to bite her lip hard not to cry in front of the children. It was Davi who took her to the bus. He appeared early at her door without being asked. He picked up the suitcase without asking. He didn't say he had known, but he had known. Because in a small town, people take care of each other without announcing it. On the way, they rode in silence. When they arrived at the bus stop, he got out, took the suitcase from the jeep, and set it on the ground in front of her. They stood facing each other, with the morning sun hitting them from the side, and the fine road dust floating in the air. "Thank you," she said, "for everything you've done here, for taking care of this place. For..." She stopped, not knowing how to finish. "I didn't do anything special. You did more than you imagined, Davi." He looked at her for a long moment. Then, for the first time since he had arrived in Villa do Pinho, the serious soldier, the man with the guarded heart, said something that wasn't calculated, wasn't practical, wasn't military. One single word: "Come back." Valentina got on the bus with that word inside her chest, and she carried it throughout the entire trip, like someone carrying a lit lamp, afraid it would go out. At the hospital, She found her mother pale, surrounded by wires and monitors. But when Mrs. Perpetua saw her daughter walk in, her eyes lit up and she reached out her hand. Valentina took it and cried. She cried for everything she had swallowed for years in that family of beautiful silences. She cried with relief at finding her mother alive. She cried with longing for a place where she had spent less than a year and already felt more like home than that 12th floor apartment. Her mother caressed her daughter's hand with her thumb, slowly. "Tell me about that place, Valentina," she asked, her voice weak but her eyes full. "Tell me everything." And Valentina told her. She told her about Donna Eunice and the coffee every Friday, about Binho and the jokes that disarmed any tension, about Rosinia and the stars, about Theo and the drawing, about the Voices of Pinot project, about the square in the sun setting slowly behind the trees, and about Davi. She told her about Davi more than she had planned. Mrs. Perpetua listened to everything with her eyes closed and a peaceful smile on her face. "You're in love," she said. "Mom, Valentina. Valentina, I saw that face for the first time when you were born. I know every expression it makes." "Silence. Go, my daughter," she said, squeezing her daughter's hand. "I'm not dying. And even if I were, you can't stop living for me." That was never what a mother wants for her daughter. The surgery went well, and one afternoon, while her mother slept, her father called Valentina for coffee in the hospital hallway. He stirred the spoon for a long time without looking at her. Then he said, "I was wrong about you. I was so busy giving you what I thought was right that I never stopped to ask what you wanted." He paused. "But I need you to know that I'm proud of you, even without understanding what you went to do at the end of the map." Valentina felt something loosen inside her, chest something that had been stuck there for many years, especially because of that. "Dad," she said, "it's especially because of that you should be proud." Mr. Arnaldo turned his face to the side and wiped his eye with his handkerchief quickly, as if he didn't want to be seen. Valentina pretended not to see. 17 days later, she stepped off the bus in Villa do Pinho. It wasn't class time, but Valentina went straight to the school anyway, suitcase still on her shoulder. When she pushed the door open and entered, the entire class was there inside, seated and quiet, as if they had been waiting. For a second, no one said anything. Then Binho stood up slowly, turned to the class, and announced with the solemnity of a ceremony presenter, "The teacher is back, everyone." And the room exploded. They came one by one, some huggy, some touching her shoulder. Mariazinha, who squeezed Valentina's waist and wouldn't let go for a long time. Theo stood in front of her, quiet as always. With a folded paper in his outstretched hand, she opened Italiano. It was a drawing. A woman with open arms in the middle of a classroom, and around her, 22 children with stars coming out of each of their heads. Below, in Theo's careful, crooked handwriting, it read, "The teacher who didn't disappear." Valentina folded the paper carefully. She placed it over her heart and said, with a voice that no longer trembled, "I'm home." That afternoon, Davi was waiting for her in the square, not sitting standing, with his hands in his pockets, looking to the side, with that expression of someone pretending he wasn't waiting, but he was. Valentina walked toward him slowly. The two stood in silence for a moment. That silence that no longer needed explanation, that had already become a familiar place between two people. "I came back," she said. "I saw," he replied. "You said one word when I left." "I did. Just one. It was the only one that mattered." Valentin looked at him. He looked at her. "Davi, I know you learned to guard your heart. I know you were hurt. But I need you to know that I didn't come here to leave. Primera que me to stay." He stayed quiet for a long moment, like someone weighing words before receiving them, because he already knew how much it hurts when they lie. Then he said, in a low and firm voice from a deep place, "Since you arrived in this town, I started remembering that there's something beyond the mission. What thing? Jew. You. And in that small square, with the fountain that never worked nearby, the crooked bell of the little church in the background, and the yellow dog sleeping in the shade as if the world were perfect like that. Davi took Valentina's hand. She didn't pull away. They stood there holding hands, watching the sun disappear slowly behind the trees like two people who had each learned, in their own way, that true love doesn't arrive where you look for it. It arrives where you least expect it, at the end of a dusty road. In a small town the world forgot, in someone who says, "Come back," with one word, and means an entire lifetime. When the day of Davi's transfer came, he went to his superior's office, sat in the chair in front, and said without beating around the bush, "I want to request an extension of the mission, sir. I have personal reasons for remaining at the post." His superior looked at him over his glasses for a long time. "Personal reasons, Sergeant?" "Yes, sir, solid ones." The superior remained silent. Then he did something rare. He smiled, he opened the drawer, signed the paper, and handed it back. "Approved. Take good care of the post." "Always, sir," Davi replied, and for the first time in a long time, he said it with a smile too. At the end of year party, the school was too small for so much joy. Colorful little flags from window to window, a table with cornmeal cake and orange juice, songs the children themselves had chosen. Valentina and Davi danced together. She stepped on his foot twice. He lost a beat once, but it was the kind of dance that doesn't need to be perfect to be perfect. Atsome Poimbino climbed onto a chair and raised his hand like someone asking to speak in Congress. "Attention, everyone. Urgent announcement." The party stopped. Teacher Valentina and Sergeant Davi had been official boyfriend and girlfriend since when? Since forever. And no one told me. What an absolute absurdity. Lauter. Tore! Applause. Whistles. Valentina turned so red that Davi had to cover his face with his hand so he wouldn't laugh too loudly. And Donna Eunice, at the back of the room, wiped the corner of her eye with her apron very quickly, as if she thought no one saw. But Rosinia saw, and she smiled, looking at the teacher who had brought stars into that little red-roofed classroom. "My people, you just heard the story of Valentina and Davi, two people who came from different worlds and ended up in the same small place and discovered that what they had always been looking for was right there, in that little piece of land the world had forgotten. Valentina had everything money could buy, and she went looking for what money could never buy. The warmth of a child who calls you teacher with pride, the feeling of truly being needed. The love that doesn't need a fancy address to exist. She didn't let go of wealth, because being rich was wrong. She let go of the emptiness inside her, and she was brave enough to go after what truly filled her, even if the whole world thought it was crazy. Davi learned in the most painful way that the heart is vulnerable, and he closed that heart like someone locking a window out of fear of the wind. But a closed window also doesn't let the light in. It took a woman who asked, "Are you okay?" With truth not, with protocol for him to remember that living with an open heart is the bravest act there is, more than any mission. And the children of Veladu, Pinhoa, they teach us the most beautiful lesson of all, that the future doesn't live in big and famous places. It lives in the small hearts that someone was willing to care for, with patience, with love, with presence. Tio wrote, "I want to be someone who doesn't disappear." How many of us need to hear that today? Sometimes, the biggest question in our lives isn't where to go, but whether we have the courage to stay. If there's something this story wants to engrave in your memory, it's this. Go where you are called not, where it is comfortable. Love with courage not, with the caution of someone who has been hurt too much. And never, ever underestimate the power of a teacher, because a teacher doesn't just pass on content. A teacher plants stars inside people, and those stars last a lifetime. The greatest act of courage in your life may not be what you imagine. It may be getting off a bus at the end of a road the GPS doesn't know, looking at a small place the world forgot, and saying out loud, This is it. This is where I stay. This is where I become who I came into the world to be. If this story touched your heart, leave your like, share it with those you love, leave your comment, and subscribe to the channel, because every week there's a new story waiting for you. Here, we don't just tell stories. We plant memories. Until next time, with love and with truth.